You're welcome. I'm gonna say that ahead of time.
Jesus is a friend of mine.
Jesus is a friend of mine. I have a friend in Jesus. It's great. It's
awesome.
amazingly good. Yes.
It will make
Change
you
your
it will
life.
make your heart swell.
I'm telling you. Actually, no, but it's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
It's from a Canadian band.
All right, cool. All right, so
let's begin.
All right, so let's begin. Let's do the countdown.
Oh, and you're supposed to look busy, by the way, Mike. Just look busy, like.
Oh, hi.
Where'd the hell that come?
I'm glad you called. That's the start. That's the start right there. Right?
What's that? To say what?
No,
there you are. How'd you guys get here?
No, I'm like, oh, thank you. So glad you came. That's ridiculous. We should totally do that.
And then like you read out loud the last line to say, and that is why Homer is the greatest writer of all time.
Right.
Hi guys, right. I can't believe I just finished the Odyssey, sitting here waiting for
amazing.
you.
It was a time of war and peace.
Basically.
There it is.
Tolstoy.
You went Tolstoy on us?
Tolstoy, I was going to say Tolstoy. See, he's doing it again, Mike. That's the stuff I'm talking about. Like
what?
I go to say Tolstoy, he's saying it, and I
set it up for both of you. But this is what he does. He shows off a little bit. He goes, "Oh, do you mean this?"
Right. I think we should actually just do a Jeopardy thing.
You mean my Yale shirt?
Your Yale shirt?
Have you hit record yet? I told you this is gold starting now.
The gold has been recorded now for almost 5 minutes.
That's amazing. There it is.
I'm going to turn around and make this into like premium gold here in a second.
Outtakes with the Rossi crew.
There's no outtakes with this. This is like how it's going to start. All right, guys, here we go. I just got to be able to synchronize this. Everybody quiet. Hi, everybody. In case you didn't notice, you're actually in the middle of Everyday Intuition with Brandon Russell. With me, as always, is TC. How are you, kid?
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
And our guest this week is none other than Mike Rossi, who comes to us with a biography that is so long, I can't believe he doesn't have a Wikipedia page, an IMDb page, America's Most Wanted, back of a milk carton, poster on the post office. He's world famous. And those of you that know him really well. And the rest of you that don't will know him by the end of this podcast. Mike, how are you?
I am good. You really oversold me. Thanks a bunch.
Just
the only thing that's good there is the missing person on the milk carton.
Oh, they found you.
But I found me. It's a long spiritual journey. It was amazing. Totally good.
Go ahead, TC. Run with that one.
Oh, that was enlightenment right there. I mean,
right there. How's everybody doing tonight? Well, that's good.
If I was any better, I'd be a twin. That's still funny.
Here's
I don't care. Here's to me. Here's to the both of us. But listen, so all kidding aside, Mike is actually one of our instructors with Spirit Tree, and he teaches tarot class, but he's so much more than that. He is a 5th degree black belt. He is somebody that is in the engineering society. He is somebody that is actually well thought, well read, and he's an incredible instructor, not only with the cards, but also with just kind of everyday walk of life. And Mike's an interesting character for us, and we thought this would be a great person for us to really kind of present, here into the podcast as well. And, in my experience, I mean, Mike, you and I have known each other 15 years, give or take.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Nice long time.
I think I met you at a poker table.
You did.
I think that's when I was using it, not always for good.
Yep. I didn't realize at the time that you were talented the way that you are. I'm glad that someone else took you out. Right.
You know what the funny part was? You know that the person that took me out actually won that tournament?
Yeah, I came in second. I tried to split it with him, and he's like, "No, we're not doing that." I'm like, "Come on, dude."
Well, he was 7 foot tall.
Yeah, well, right, yes. And at that point, I was not a 5th degree black belt. Right.
Back then, I was a green belt.
Yeah,
it was. Might have won.
There's a lot of fast talking I could have done. That was about it.
I think Chet stands is 7 foot. I think he's 6'11".
He's a giant dude.
Do you remember that? He's a great guy.
Yeah, he stood up and he blotted out the sun. It was amazing. Anyway, neither here nor there.
Well, I think at the end of the tournament, it served him right. He stood up. He didn't even jump. He stood up, hit his head on a beam, knocked out cold. It was fantastic. Sorry. Anyways, that's what you get when you take both me and Mike out in a poker tournament. That's why we don't play like that anymore. But But, over the years, I've really kind of known you to have these passions and really kind of, the things that you really kind of enlighten people with, through the instructions have a lot to do with how you are, as a person. And I've really personally, I've watched you kind of grow into that person that, once upon a time it might have been speak and it might have been do. And then over time, now you really talk about speaking and doing all together.
Yeah.
And and I know TC's certainly got some input here because she's taken classes with you, and knows you personally as well, not quite as long, but still with that. So I just want to TC, I want you to get the conversation going.
Well, my first question was for Mike to tell us a little bit about himself, but I think you filled that in already.
There's so much more to Mike, though.
So,
Mike, I was going to ask you in all truth and seriousness and trying to keep a straight face to, tell us about yourself, like your interests and hobbies, not whether you like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain kind of tell you about ourselves, but just give us a little background.
Dang, that was my lead in. Okay. So as Brandon mentioned, I am, first things first, I don't like talking about myself. So it's going to be great. It's going to be a fun time. Second thing is, yes, I've been doing martial arts for 29 years, off and on. I started when I was 6. I took, my dad ended up at the time I was trying to set a belief. I was really small, big glasses, got beat up a lot down in Philly, and my dad ended up finding a place in Jersey back in 1979 that would actually keep kids. Back then, dojos are all over the place now, but back then that was not a thing. So he ended up having to pay the guy double, from what I understand, to have him teach me, and I was on the floor with all these adults. So anyway, I did that. Then we moved up here. I got a black belt in Taekwondo, and I quit that the next day because girls run track, so I ran track. And then after I went up get my engineer's degree, I got out of that. I came back to the martial arts. So I've been doing that for a real long time. I also, in college, was dabbling with tarot cards and a bunch of other stuff. I'm pretty well read. I like to read a broad swath of stuff. I mostly concentrate on history and just stuff that kind of interests me at the time. I'll dive into something really deep if I like it. I do it real kind of short and then move on to the next thing. But anyway, I met Brandon playing poker. We had some mutual friends. And then I ended up going through a pretty bad midlife crisis that was thrust upon me. My marriage fell apart. And at that point, I was like, wow, I don't get my daughter 5 days a week, and I have all this free time. And if I don't fill my free time, I'm going to fill it with something that isn't probably very healthy. So I ended up running into Brandon again. And he had mentioned to me, hey, I'm doing this class. And if you're interested, just come and take the first class. If you don't like it, it's totally fine. So I took the first class. I loved it. I paid for the whole 20 weeks. I said, we're doing this. And I went through intuitive development. Afterwards, went through intuitive living. Took the 2-day mediumship intensive, did a bunch of other stuff. Been teaching classes there now. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'm a martial arts instructor. I've been doing that for over 20 years. I ran the kids program at the dojo where I was at for about 12. I did a lot of work learning about autistic kids and also how, because of ADHD and how they learn. Anyway, and then I'm an engineer. And my day job, I'm an engineer. I love solving problems, work in the transportation sector. Spent 11 years designing airports, and now I work with DOT designing computer systems, track engineering stuff for highways.
You used to design airports?
Yeah, it's super cool.
Which
awesome.
one? Which ones? Was it all in New York State, or did you do the Colorado one? Because we got to talk.
No, not Colorado, but I did do. I worked in Philly. I worked in Boston a little bit. I worked at JFK a little bit. Most of my work was at the Rochester and Albany Airport.
Wow.
I did runway extensions there, all the rehabs. It was pretty cool. That was good work, but it was a lot of work. I mean, I was putting in like 55-hour weeks on average. You know, and it's like, yeah. So that's really cool until after a while, you're like, I want to have a kid and I can't be a parent and do this at the same time and be an effective parent. So I ended up switching careers. I'm still an engineer, but I ended up going as a consultant. I went with consulting. I went to the DOT.
Wow. So, I mean, really important question here. Yeah, you're a great dad. Everything's great. Are there bunkers under Albany?
No, I don't think so. If there are, I didn't design them, or that I had to design around them. So
I thought this could be one of those podcasts.
If there were, they wouldn't tell me. Let's go with that.
You're a bit of a talker. You're a bit of a talker.
A little bit.
It's all good. That's cool. I never knew that about you with the airports. I mean, I knew it was civil, like municipal stuff, but that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is interesting. Now, Mike, you were talking about how you had done, you dabbled with tarot in college, but how did you come to realize you had a gift of intuition, and how did that eventually like parlay into tarot as a medium for you?
Okay, so that's a cool. Okay, so if you have an opportunity to go through the intuitive development class, which you have,
Mhm.
it's pretty cool. You get exposed to a lot of different stuff. And the first day I was there, we did a meditation, and I had a couple visions during the meditation. I was like, "This is awesome." Get back to that again, right? Um, but the important thing for my journey is when I started doing it, the first couple, I think you and I were talking about this earlier, the first couple classes came up and it's like, okay, you're going to have a meditation. You're going to go up and you're fly through here, go here, go there. And now you're going to open your eyes and all your spirit guides are going to be there to welcome you. And I open my eyes and there ain't nobody anywhere in any of my visions. It's me in an empty room. I'm like, are you kidding me? Right. And then there's another one where it's like, you're going to go and all your ancestors are there. I look around, crickets, nobody. There's never. And meanwhile, other people like, I saw my grandma. She told me some stuff, and I'm like, I saw no one, right?
Well, if you saw crickets, then isn't that shamanism?
Wait for that. That's later.
Oh, okay.
This is
okay.
right. So it ends up that after a couple of weeks of this, but I'm still like, oh, I'm like, well, I paid for it. I'm going to keep going to class. I'm finding it interesting, even though I can't make it work. And down the ways, meanwhile, I'm getting little nibbles, right? Like the aura class, I was like, holy crap! I see blue. I see yellow. Right? Just this little right around the eye, right side of the head, but I'm getting stuff. And I remember the way that you had taught that class, you had us all write down the color first, right, that we saw.
Right,
and then
right.
everybody, right? And so I was like, wow, you saw blue? Because I saw blue too. And I was, with the majority, I'm not going to say right, but when I was with the majority, like 9 of the 11 times, I was like, wow, I get this thing to work. Boom, right? And then, the envelope, anyway, we ended up going through it. And when I started doing the tarot stuff is, it doesn't rely on seeing dead people. It doesn't rely on getting any messages from anybody. I was just flip over the card. That's the symbol. That means this. That means that. And then you have this intuitive leaps where you go, huh, that's interesting. Are you having problems with your work? And if so, is it your boss? And they would go, yeah. And after asking those questions and having the answer be yeah over and over again, I was like, maybe this is my thing, right? Maybe this is the tool that I can use to help people. In the end, it's all helping people, right? It's the tarot, the martial arts, all the other stuff. It's about the engineering. I was put on this earth to help as many people as I can before I'm done, right? And if there's a way that I can do it, who am I to say no, right? But anyway, and then you make these leaps, right? So, and the leaps come when you have the opportunity and you dare to say yes. So Brandon comes to me and goes, no, you're rather good with cards. We're having an intuitive fair, and I need somebody to come and sit in. Could you read cards for people? I'm like, I'm not comfortable doing that. He goes, come on, it'll be fine. Okay, it'll be fine.
By the way, Mike, they all say that. Everybody always, I don't really know. I don't know.
Right? And then when you do it, and it's like everybody leaves, and for the most part, it's like, wow, this is working. Yeah, me, right? And that gave me the confidence to continue on. I didn't really feel like I really knew what I was doing because I don't have any of the trappings. I don't have any of the hoo-ha that goes with it, right? No orb. I don't see lights. It's just, right? I was in the mediumship class. Yep. Brandon was running, and they go around the room. Was it 15, 18 people in the class? Go around. I'm sitting at the end, and I'm sitting next to Deb at the cell. And so they come around to me, and they go, "Did you introduce yourself?" I'm like, "I don't even know why I'm here. I don't have any talent. I don't see anything. I don't do anything." And Deb turns to me, and she yelled at me. She goes, "Would you shut the fuck up?" I was like, "What?" Right? And she goes, "You don't need clairvoyance. You don't need cleansing. You just know. You just know. You have claircognizance. That's your thing." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then over the course of the rest of the next 2 days, we were able to put that to the test over and over again. And she was right. I would just know stuff. It just would lift back here and then boom, out it comes. There's no intermediary for me. It just is. That's how it expresses, right? People that say it has to express a certain way, I hate that because it blocks people out of tapping into that intuition. You know what I mean? I mean, my way is not going to be your way, Tracy. It's certainly not Brandon's way. And Brandon and I both teach tarot, and we teach it completely different. Completely different, you know?
And,
And I,
and,
oh,
and a couple of things on that. I just want to kind of comment on the Deb thing. If I had $1 for every time Deb like pulled somebody aside and was like, "Cut your crap," this is what it looks like. And I'm not kidding you. She must have done it 10 times to people that she just knew and saw it. Right, TC? I mean, has she called you out before?
I know with Riki, she was like, "You are doing all this," and I was like, "People are seeing things that I'm not seeing. Like, I get the color thing.
Right.
My hands are warm. Like, that's about it. Like,
Yeah.
I that's why, like, with what Mike was saying, I just like, I want to chime into that because I think it's important. Like, I know our conversation before we recorded was like, we sat through ID class and it was like people were seeing like fields of everything. And I totally, you're saying you saw crickets or heard crickets. And I'm like, oh my God, exactly. That was me,
But you
that's
also,
perfect.
you
That's
also
perfect
have to,
though.
you also have to understand two parts to that. First of all, and Mike, you hit the nail right on the head. Everybody's going to work different. Everybody's going to work different. The fact that you're embracing the exercise is it's opening up something. You might not tangibly know what that something is yet, but it'll show it to you. And then you get to that. In Mike, in your case, it was the tarot class. TC, I think when you grabbed a crystal, and you worked with an aura, or your specialty is energy based.
Yeah.
Mike's was claircognizance. Deb is looking at somebody and saying, she and I are closer to cut from the same cloth, where it's like, we know when somebody's path, that we're on their path for a reason. Like that's kind of, she's a medium that like she's working for, certain advocacies, and she's got that blend. I've got my stuff going on, but where the Venn diagram overlaps is when it comes to helping people. And Mike, that's why that's why I was so adamant to say you got to teach this, stuff, because you ultimately are going to help somebody. And to me, a good teacher recognizes when somebody just needs help. It's not, you can get frustrated with the people that are going to be like, I'm taking this class, but I really just want to be able to say I took the class. That's always going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's rare, because when they get inspired to be like, holy crap, I want to see what that is. How do they just do that? How do they pull a Knight of Wands? By the way, I got my cards here, a Six of Cups and a Hermit card going, okay, what the hell's going on? How did you know that everything was going to change suddenly? There was going to be a ton of action, but I'm living in the past. So I'm kind of doing this by myself. Like, it's like, how did you know that right off the bat? Because cognitively, intuitively, you let it flow to that. And what's to say that guide connection, or that animal connection, or that angel connection, albeit it was not necessarily practical, eye-opening, or lightning bolt, everybody wants the lightning bolt, but what it might have been doing was preparing you to get you to the tarot going. It's kind of like, it's kind of like when you see a movie and there's like two parts to it. And you're like, take a movie like The Wizard of Oz. The beginning of it, you're like, all right, it's Kansas. This is like a dry thing. It's like, the little old lady's got a basket and a dog and blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden it, flips the switch. That was like what happened to you when you hit tarot. It's like, at first you're just like, all right, it's an okay movie. I'm following along. I get it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden everything was in color. Everything made sense. Everything was, everybody's singing. It's the Yellow Brick Road. You figured out which path you were going to be on.
Right.
Makes sense. Makes
totally
sense.
Does. And it's so cool. And everybody is going to get that hit different. Some people it's shamanism. For some people it's the dream interpretation. The meditation. There's other stuff in there, and it's just tools in the toolbox.
Yeah.
And it's cool.
Well,
it's cool because, go ahead, Tracy.
Well, I was going to say, I think for the students, I think it also speaks for determination, like, because there's a lot of times where you don't get stuff and everybody in the room's getting stuff and you're like, okay, is this thing on? I'm going to quit. Yeah. And then you show up the next week and you sit in your car and I'm like, I'm quitting this week. I know it. And then you sit through class and you're like, well, there was something there this time. But it talks about like how you're not giving up because you're still seeking that gift, and you're still, like Brandon said, you're going through, the exercises, and you're like, okay, well, maybe I'll try this at home. And then you try it at home a couple times. You're like, something was there. I don't know what it was, but I'll ask the question. And then you get brave enough 4 weeks later to ask the question, like, I saw this happen, and people are like, oh, so it's, it's important, because I think a lot of students have those moments there.
Yeah. It's awesome watching going through the class, and after a while, it's funny. The class starts, and it's like, I don't know, we had 18, 20 people in the class. And after the first 5 weeks, and there's like 16 people in the class. The next 5 weeks, you got 12 people in the class, and the numbers go down. And then the people, unless they get past the first 8 weeks, they're there. They're in. They're in for the whole. They're in for a penny.
Yeah.
And by the time we were done, I think there were 6 of us. And man, you build real tight relationships with those people, because it's hard for me to go to work and be like, you know what I did? I had a shamanistic experience. My spirit animal is a fox. You know why? Let me tell you the story. And they're like, we're in an engineering meeting. There's runways and stuff we have to build, right? And I'm like, no, foxes, right? Like there's only so many people you can share those experiences with, right? And then going through that with people and having that self-discovery with other people and seeing them have their aha moment, right? Which is like the best part of being an instructor, is when it clicks for them. Oh my God, right? On the dojo floor, I've had the same thing. It's like people can't get out of their own way. I have 2 arms. I didn't know I had 2 arms. Next thing you know, they're moving nice, and they go to you and they go, wow, I didn't think I could move like that. I'm like, man, the magic's in you the whole time. Click, click, click. Here we go.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. You bring up a great point with, that teacher's moment of aha. It's great to see a student have that, and that's why, and again, you stand on your own merits and the things that you've done and the space you've created for yourself. But for me, I recognized early on with you, and you brought this with the dojo, that you really know when somebody's struggling, like, who to spend the time on. That's
Right.
important.
Right.
But then also it's like, you're like, I don't quite know the word I've got to say to this person yet, but I'm going to keep working with them, and hopefully it's going to come through the way it's supposed to come through. And in full disclosure, Mike will say to me in private, like, I hope I don't tick him off. I hope I don't scare him away.
Right.
But
it's a lot. Yeah.
But sometimes that's what has to happen. Sometimes you have to, like, throw the gauntlet down and say, are you doing this for fun? Do you what are you doing here? Not that we ever get combative about it, but like, hey, what's your purpose here? Like, where are you going with this?
Right.
And you just simply reminded them on the car ride home or their reflection time, their next meditation, that they go, why the hell am I here? What am I doing here? And then all of a sudden they clear their head, they come back, and then they have one aha moment after another.
Right.
Now go ahead, TC.
No,
Go ahead, Mike.
I will jump in. So just to piggyback on that, one of the things that I start out one of the 2 things I start out with when I teach the first class, and I think you've seen me do the first class, right? In the series that we do on tarot, it's the first thing is everybody's going to express this differently. Don't compare yourself to, right? You're going to read the cards different from everybody else. I am showing you how I do it, right? That does not mean that's the only way to do it. But I preface by saying I don't know everything. I know how I go. Let me help you. Hopefully this is useful. Right? Set the bar nice and low, but also very personal. Right? Let them know. And the second thing for me, the whole point of all of this, the teaching the martial arts, the tarot, the other stuff that I do, is I want people to feel empowered. I want them to understand that they have a purpose. They got power. They have the abilities to set those boundaries to help other people. They can pay this forward. I want them to understand that they have that power, grasp it, and use it for good. It's the coolest calling in the world to help other people. Yeah. And if you have the opportunity to do it, why wouldn't you? Right? Put on your Iron Man suit and get flying. Let's go. It's cool. With the hot hands, that's what you do, right? Anyway, I let them know in the beginning, like, this is what this is for. It's not for you to say, am I going to meet Mr. Right every day and flip a card until you get the right answer, right? That's not what this is. That's not what this is. It's self-discovery. It's a window into yourself. You know what I mean? So I set the bar, and then I let them know what the whole class is about. And then that kind of changes the way the class runs after that, right? Because I think people come in and some of them are like, I can't wait to see my grandma, see the orb, see the lights, right? Pull a card, and that's the one. And
right.
It's not how I learned, right? It doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm doing, but I don't express that way, right? Not to say if other people do, and trust me, I've had people in that class that express like that, and they're amazing to watch. Holy schmoly, they're so awesome, right? But I can't teach them how to do that. I just let them know, you might feel something like this. You might get that intuitive hit. Let it go. Trust it, right? That's as far as I can do when it comes to, like, helping, or I help, but I don't teach that part. That part is in that. I'm just letting them know that it's okay to access it. You know what I mean?
I think it's a quintessential thing of a good teacher doesn't tell you what to think. They just show you where to look.
Yeah.
You know, they don't tell you what to see. They kind of go, did you look at the entire room or did you just look in the corner? And I think that that's kind of a quintessential thing. You know, and I think it's also a huge difference when you go from kind of doing this and, doing your own readings and then you have to teach it. Claircognizance is kind of a really hard thing to grasp. And you're not easily going to, they're going to ask the question like, well, how do you do that? You'll be like, I don't know. Like, it's just like, you're like, oh, it pops into my head and I trust it. So what you end up doing is teaching them the trust mechanism that you need when you're working with your intuition.
Right.
Is it? That is number one, right? That is number one.
So that's like your superpower. Like that's like your innate ability to be like, okay, here we go. And I'm sure you did it on the dojo floor. You certainly done it in a tarot class. You actually did it as a student. When you would, talk to somebody, it's kind of like you're sharing the experience of Deb. I've watched you do it. I've watched TC do it, where you're like calm down, like give a little perspective.
Yeah. Love yourself a little bit, and it'll flow, right? If you grip down, you stop the intuition from moving. Just let it be, let it go, right? On the dojo floor, the scariest thing is seeing a guy tense up because he thinks that that's going to help, and you're like, you got to flow, man. You got to move, right? It's anyway, and then it's the same thing goes for your intuition. If you push it, if you're like, oh, I got to make this thing good, you can't push it to make it go. You can't hit the button harder, right? It's just you have to open your hand, and then there you go, right?
And I think that's where the balance with intuitive development comes in, where a lot of people, you lose people because it's work. It's not, am I going to meet this person? It's,
right.
I have to look at myself. I have to see what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And I might have to change that. And am I ready for that change? Am I ready to bring that into my life now where I'm at? If I'm not, how can I make my environment fit that to bring the change?
Right.
And then that's where we were talking before about just knowing, and like Brandon said, I'll spit something out and people are like, how'd you do that? I'm like, I don't know.
I didn't do anything. That just was
in my nature. Like, I need to know, it's in my chart, Aquarian, that I need to know how it happened, why it happened, how's it going to happen again? What's the path? And that's where I've got to learn to be able to be like, oh, well, like, okay.
And I think that's a really kind of powerful thing too, as you say it like that, because, you've got a couple of things going on there. You've got the whole part of it where it came together for you. And that's actually when you work with your intuition, when you do this, I don't care what your modality is. I don't care if you're a Reiki practitioner. I don't care if you're a tarot reader. I don't care if you're going to come in and do, if you're paying attention to your guides and you're really doing that work to connect with your mediumship. If you want to see things in the future and you want to, connect with the astrology of it and where things are going to trend, all of those things are like, you've still got to pay attention to that core gut thing. And for me, and Mike, I want to ask a question here. What are some of the things you do to kind of get yourself grounded? Like, what's your primer stuff? And TC, feel free to add into this, because I know this is a topic, one of your favorite topics. So pile onto that question before Mike answers.
No, it's okay. Like, that was that wasn't where I was going, but like, that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I'm going to do a reading for somebody, one of the things that I teach in the class and the thing that works for me is if I need to root down and ground myself, I have I'm going to use the term a ritual, but it isn't, it's only a ritual insofar as I do the same thing before every reading. And it is not a lot. It is, I take 3 deep breaths, I shuffle the cards, I ask the same questions the same way, right? If it's someone that I don't know, thanks for coming. Really glad you put your trust in me. Do you have anything special you want to talk about, or is this something generic, right? Let me know. I'm going to shuffle the cards for a bit. I'm going to hand to you. You let me know. They always ask, how long do I shuffle? I always say, till you feel that you're done, right? And then they always ask, okay, do I cut the deck? I say, only if you want to. it's almost like, right, you know what I mean? And then afterwards,
it's to choose your own adventure.
That's exactly what it is. You pick 72, there's an orc, you're dead, start again. Oh, sadness, right? So, but the other thing that I do is once I get the cards and I take it back, I say, thank you very much. This is going to be fun. Let's see how it goes.
When do you die of dysentery?
Right, that's on page 97. So the other thing that I do after is I take the deck, and what I will do is when I lay out, I use a spread that I like. I don't use the Celtic Cross, I use something else. But when I do it, I say what the cards mean as I flip them. Right? So this is you, this is your current direction, this is opposition, this is an opportunity, right? This is your home, this is your work or vocation, this is your relationships, this is something wherever your past leads to a possible future. Right? Let's see what we got. And then I usually have a reaction to the cards that I see, right? And they'll get what? I go, we'll get into it, and then we just go through the cards we roll, right? But that opening allows me to open up, get ready to go. I'm putting them at ease. I want them to understand what this experience is going to be like. Most of the time, the people I've read for it is their first time, or they'll say, "Oh yeah, I saw this other person, and they saw my grandma." And I'm like, I let them know, like, I ain't gonna see no grandmas, right? I just need you to know that, right? I'm gonna flip these cards. I'm gonna tell you what the cards mean. We're gonna go from there, right? It's not a lot of magic tricks and stuff. It's just me talking mostly, right? So hope you like that. Anyway, that's how I ground myself. And then the other thing that I do on the back end when I read for myself is I will spend 5 minutes meditating on whatever it is, whatever the problem is. If it's a general reading, I spend 10 minutes thinking about why do I feel the way I feel? Why am I pulled to draw these cards? I usually do a full reading for myself once a month. It takes about half an hour to an hour. That's it. I don't read every day. I don't flip a card in the morning. I just go about my life. But every once in a while, I'm going to recalibrate, see what's up. Sometimes something happens during the day, and you're like, I need a little, right? Like I may have blown the day, right? I made some awful mistake somewhere, whatever it is, lose your temper, drop the ball. Sometimes good news comes in, sometimes bad news, whatever. And I'll go, okay, I'm going to read the cards just to see how I respond to what the cards are telling me. I don't want the cards to tell me what's going to happen. That's not what this is for, right? They're made in a factory in New Jersey. They don't have that power. The power that they have is flip the card. I look at it. I have the reaction what the card is telling me, and that is the magic, right? Straight out of Hoboken. Boom, right? Dying, right?
It is, and I think you froze at just right time too.
Did I freeze? Oh no!
Right? It was a clear edit though. It was like and that mother. See what I mean?
Oh, that's perfect. Leave that in because that rules.
It was awesome, actually.
There we go.
And it's funny. I'm sitting here like rolling cards out, and it's you guys were talking about the intuitive development class, and and it's funny. I pull over a King of Swords, a 5 of Swords, and a 7 of Pentacles, and like my read on this is like you guys are talking about the change that I had. I kind of had to put my foot down and make it the right way and change it because my vision's always been there for that. And then as you were talking about oh gosh, sometimes I screw up. And, I've got to kind of go back to it. It's so funny. As you were saying that, I pull out a 5 of Pentacles, the Judgment card, and then the Knight of Swords. So it's like you were saying something about like sometimes it happens. It's like, oh my gosh, it has nothing to do with me. Or you were alluding to it. Like sometimes it's like, sometimes I'm just the patsy that has to send the reply all and everybody need to kind of see me say it. I mean, sometimes you don't even realize that when you make mistakes like that, or you say things, out loud, or, something happens, sometimes there's like absolute purpose to it.
Yeah.
And then the cards give you the confidence, like, it's not you, it's me, or it's not me, it's you. And, that's what I think a lot of people give me feedback, at least when they start to really begin to understand it. They get a little bit of confidence that their gut told them, like, I said that out of anger, but that person really needed to hear that. They turn over a couple of cards to tell the whole story, and they're like, okay, at least I have confidence with this. At least I can say to myself, my anxiety was is going to parlay onto
Right.
something positive happening. So
I do want to. There's the other side of this too. Now, one of the things that I think is really important is this idea of empowerment, but also like a lot of stuff that I do. So I keep going back to martial arts because it is the other passion, engineering, martial arts, and then new stuff like some of the passions in my life, right? And so martial arts is designed around, it is when you do it, whether or not you're fighting or any other stuff that goes with it, any pursuit that you have where you're trying to get better, and you're allowed to do it at your own pace for a long period of time, leads to your improvement. It leads to, it leads to human development. That's kind of what we're shooting for, right? We want to be better versions of ourselves. We have to be careful when we go, okay, I was angry and I let the guy know what was up. And it's very easy to go home and go, that guy, I blew it, but that guy deserved it. And he'll thank me for, no, he won't. You were a jerk. Figure yourself out. If you feel bad right afterwards, you got to find out why you feel bad. You don't want to find an excuse for why you did that. If it really hurts you, don't do it again, right? And the reason why I bring that up is the transition to people love doing this. They love using readings and this stuff to justify awful behavior.
Amen.
They love it. They love it. So the first time I read, I'm going to tell the story. First time I'm doing readings for other people, and I'm there at the psychic fair, the intuitive fair, and a lady comes in, she sits down, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? Pleasure to meet you. I'm Mike. I'm X. I said, okay, cool. Is there anything you want to talk about today? And she goes, well, I'm cheating on my husband. And I go, oh, especially given my background, right? And I'm like, okay. She goes, well, I just want to know how it's going to go. And I'm like, poorly, right? I mean, I don't know what to tell you. But so we roll the cards, and there you go. But the entire time, like, and that card means talk to your husband. And that card means you should talk to your husband. And that card there means you talk to your. She left and goes, that's great. Thank you so much. I was like, no problem. She left. I was like, are you kidding me? Another lady comes in. I'm doing X and such, right? I'm stealing. And people, that first night, out of the 5 people I read, 4 of them came in and said, I am doing something awful. What's up? And I'm like, you know what's up. You don't have to ask me. You know what's up, right? It was weird. So I remember remarking to you and go, is it always like this? And you're like, you don't know half of it. I said, okay, no problem. I guess this is the rule. It's the gig.
And again, though, I mean, I don't want to think, I don't want people to think that it's like all nefarious, but that is, I mean, some people, when people come to you for that advice, I mean, some people come to you for bereavement. As a medium, I would say 75% of everybody is coming to me because they've lost somebody and they're looking for some solace. And of those 75 people, and then, looking at the entire group again, north of 50% are looking for some guidance in this. Like they're a little bit lost. They're hoping it comes from a loved one, but if not, like, what do you see? What do you see? Should I play the lottery? Should I do this? Should I do that? Right. And it's funny when I combine tarot with that. The tarot, I let the tarot tell that part of the story, or at least give me confidence with it. But I may say, hey, listen, I'm getting that you're really, you're sitting around and you're not doing this, but you're hoping it changes. Well, you can wish in one hand, shit in the other, and tell me which one comes through first.
Right.
And the reality is that me in that reading, I always figure out what my role is to them, because sometimes it is to just make them feel better about their loved one. Other times it's about get off your butt, or what are you doing, or whatever. And it's, that's why a lot of us that are mediums also hold a credential for intuitive coaching or life coaching, or, something along that lines, because of that pitfall. But I love how you handled it. Like, I mean, just like from a student kind of coming into it, and this is years ago now, but when you came into this, you were just like, like you were just so practical. Like you had my point is you had all the tools going into that. So when you gave her that advice, you're like, you kind of did like the mea culpa, I'm going to go talk to the manager, which is not how we work at all. But you came to me and you were like, dude, like what, like you were asking me, like, was this here? But you were almost kind of doing it as in like, I kind of like doing this, but is it always like this? Right.
And that's exactly what it was. Because I had no frame of reference. The only other reading that I had done for other people was for friends at parties and for other people in the class. This is the first time, people coming off the street and going, hey, I have this need. And it took me a while to realize that when the lady came in and said, I'm cheating on my husband, tell me it's going to be okay. That's not what, she may have said that's what she wanted, but the deeper need was, what am I doing? I'm cheating on my husband. What am I doing? Right. Okay. Well, let me write you a narrative on what the cards are saying. And then your response to what I'm saying is going to tell you what you're doing. And if what you're doing is right, because you know what? I don't know what's going on at home. I don't know what's up. Maybe she has every good reason to do that. Maybe that guy's a piece of work. What do I know? Right. I wasn't going to sit down and say, you're wrong and I'm not going to read you. Right. And then the thing that is the most important, I think, when doing this work is when I do a reading, there's two things that I try to do. The first is, actually, let me back up. My philosophy when it comes to reading symbols of any type, I use this example in the first class, and that is reading any symbol. The symbol isn't the thing that is powerful. It's your response to what the symbol is telling you that matters. That's how your intuition is yelling you, right? If I have the example I use, if I have a quarter and I'm like, I don't know what I want to eat tonight. You know what? I'm going to flip this quarter. If it's heads, it's Chinese. If it's tails, it's pizza. I'm kind of sad about pizza. Well, don't do pizza. Go eat Chinese. You wanted Chinese. My response to what the thing said was what the important. That told me what I needed to know, right? That told me what my desire was. And then you extrapolate out the more important stuff like relationships, career, the question, what am I doing with my life? What the symbols tell you, your response to that is what's important. And that's the key to using these things whenever you do a real good meditation or to use them in anything to make your life better, right? They are a window to give you a feeling for what your real drives are, right? I think we go through our entire lives not even understanding what makes us tick, what we really want. We say we want this, but we really want that, and we get miserable because we're not chasing the things we want, right? And this empowerment, this is a way to get to that.
And it's funny, that's why a class like intuitive development is so popular, because people we're not taught how to trust what we get. We're not taught how to be synchronized. Our frame of reference for faith is religion. And, sometimes the things that even if you don't believe in it, it could actually exist. It could be real. But you've still got to have the faith that it exists. You've got to have the faith that it's reality. You've got to have, the faith in yourself. I mean, that's the thing that I think most people, when they start to develop their intuition, they realize how empowered they are, not only to make decisions, but also trust where they're going with it. And one of the things with that is owning a mistake. So I think you nailed the head right on the nail. What? I think you did. You said it perfectly. You hit the nail on the head when it comes to, somebody kind of looking for that validation. The validation wasn't, I really like this other person I'm seeing. It's more of the validation of, I need to get this off my chest and give me something to reflect on.
Yep. That's it. That's it.
Doesn't that just boil down to the fact that, again, we need to work on ourselves and we have to come to that point of being honest with ourselves to say, this is what I need to hear and this is what I need to be receptive to, and I have to make a choice from there? Because if I really want Chinese and I flip the coin and I get pizza and I'm disappointed, but I then go because the sign drove me to get pizza and I eat it and I get indigestion and I'm unhappy, I'm like, I should have just got Chinese.
And that's the mistake that people make. They act as if when they tap into that intuition, they get a reading or they get anything like that, they go, well, I guess that's just how it's going to be. And they give up their free will to make any changes. It's crazy. The other thing that I added as part of every one of the readings that I do is I check in a lot. I'm thinking this, does that make sense? How about this? That relates back to here. Does that resonate? Is that cool? But at the end, I go, okay, now that I recap everything. Okay, does it all hang together? And if so, what are you going to do? Did this help? Does it feel right? Does it feel right? If it feels right, this is telling me that you need to X, right? Or that you're on the right path. And is that good? What is next? If there's no call to action, if just like have a little salve on it and they leave, okay, that's good. But I'm a big believer in action, right? Action gets it done, right? Thunder is the noise, but the lightning gets it done. You know what I mean? You got to go. I don't know.
Boy, I'm having fun with this. Can I ask a question though? Why did you do the comparison of Chinese food and pizza?
I love them.
Because it's on your shirt.
Because Chinese food is delicious, right?
I got a little spot.
I'm also not a real big believer like, even bad pizza is good pizza. No, bad pizza is bad.
Yeah. Oh, bad pizza is definitely bad. But I ended up grabbing just a slice and a little backstory. And this is TC has every reason to razz me. I had a home party tonight. And it was actually for an old client, and she was surprising her friend. It was her birthday, all this other good stuff. So I'm like, oh, it'll only take me an hour and a half later. hour and 45 minutes. I know, right? So I literally pulled into this is the reason why I asked. I pull into this mall thing, and because I saw the sign for Chinese, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna grab a quick. I wanted Chinese, but then I talked myself out of it because I thought it would take too long.
That's why the pizza fell on your shirt, because you made the wrong choice.
Every day of my life.
Dumplings.
Yes, dumplings are God's gift to food, right? The good sauce, a little spice.
What else is what else is God's gift to food? Let's talk food for 10 minutes.
Ice cream. Ice cream is the thing that ice cream. It is the king of all dessert. Now, ice cream with a little bit of cakey something. So, like, if I take, those little dessert cups that they sell at the grocery store. Oh my God! I take one of those, put it at the bottom of the bowl, a little bit of ice cream there. The ice cream also they go like this. Creamy, so good.
A little vanilla ice cream with some Baileys from the freezer over top.
Right? Yeah.
That's chocolate syrup.
See, these are good. I like.
We are learning a whole other level with you right now, TC. You consume far more alcohol than what any of us ever thought. It's all good though. It's good. I mean, I'm figuring out what to get.
I don't get enough opportunities to do that. So.
Oh well, you're hanging with the crowd. You're right. You're hanging with the right people now.
I've been drinking on the air for the last hour. Right?
Well, I didn't know it was bring your own. I've been drinking the water.
Amateurs.
I know, right? I actually thought that was just a sample you were turning in later.
Ew, that's gross. You're gross.
Listen. It's all all good. It's legit.
That is not good. That is not. No. Here's the good box. You're over here.
TC, any other what other questions? Because I know you got a whole list.
I do. So, Mike, what you were talking a little bit before about like the spreads that you use. I know that you don't necessarily use a specific deck, but what decks do you recommend for people who are like beginners or intermediate level?
Okay, so
and can you talk about the deck that you use? Because I know that is
totally right. Yeah. Okay, so. So when I teach the class, one of the things that because of the universal way of reading the cards that it's not what the cards say, it's what your reactions to the cards. That thought process works for any deck, angel deck, animal oracle, all that other stuff, right? None of those speak to me. I have been using the tarot, the standard, the standard deck with the 4 suits and the major minor arcana. That is the symbology that works for me. Yep.
Right.
A giant bam, right?
So that Brandon can
when
see
I
that
teach the class, very big for the Reader's Digest version. The giant table to do them on. I teach the class with the Rider-Waite because that's the one that people think of when they think tarot, right? And the symbols are actually pretty forgiving. They're pretty good in terms of like you look at the card, you can read a story in the card. Symbols are pretty good.
Hello, Leo.
Yeah.
So sorry.
I'm here to help.
There it is. So the deck that I bought for myself back in college was one second. It is I'm a dork. So I bought the Arthurian Tarot, right? So it looks like that. There you go. By Caitlin and John Matthews. And they do a lot of Arthurian mythos stuff. I am a big guy into folklore. I like history. Symbology on here really spoke to me. I thought this was really cool. The funny thing about the way these cards are set up, they're very hard to learn if you don't know what you're doing. So a normal tarot deck, right? If I was going to take a look at the devil card is the devil, and it's got a male and a female. They're chained to the devil. They're not really looking at each other. There you go, right? So there's the symbol there, and when you take a look at it, you can read into that what that is. That is essentially you are a slave to something else. You're a slave to an idea. You're giving your power to somebody else, right? Okay. My deck, when you take a look at it, this is the devil. This is the devil. This guy right here. You see how with a little bit of glare? There you go. Father Christmas. Hey, how's it going? I'm the Green Man. What's up? That people look at that and go, I love that card. So cute. I go, I know. It's really great. However, right? If you know the folklore, if you know the story behind the Green Man, the Green Man shows up. Arthur is there with all his knights in his hall. The Green Man shows up, kicks in the door, and goes, "I gotta, You guys stink. I got a challenge for your strongest knight. Come over here. And Gawain gets up because I'm the strongest knight. Let's go. And the Green Man goes, we're going to play the head chopping game. So here's my axe, and you get one swing at my head. And if you lop off my head, totally cool. But I then, a year from now, could lop off your head. Wayne's like, this is the stupidest game ever. I'm a winner. Boom! The head comes off. The Green Man goes over, puts the head back on, and goes, I'll see you in a year, and disappears. Wayne's like, oh no, what am I going to do, right? So during the entire year, he has to go on this quest, right? And it's all about having this onus. He's slave to this thing, right? This thing is driving him to do stuff he doesn't want to do. It's leading to a doom that right? So if you know the folklore, that card makes perfect sense. But if you don't know that story, well, how am I supposed to get that out of that? It's just a dude going, Merry Christmas. Like it's not useful from a symbology standpoint. I had to learn the story behind most of these cards to understand what they meant. Right? That took way longer than it had to. So I actually think the Rider-Waite from a symbology perspective is much better. I love this deck because I've been using it forever. But I would not say, hey, it's the deck for you. It takes too long, right? It's layers of symbology, right?
And Mike, I think that's, when you start working with this tarot, you've got your basic primer card. Once you kind of learn this one, then you can, TC, I pulled this aside for you. This is totally, hey, how about some Aquarian energy? These are the tears of Pisces being poured back into the earth.
Those are Brandon's tears being poured over, just in case you didn't know, Mike.
Yes. So actually, Brandon, just as an example, you flashed up strength before.
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to crack that out again, it's inner strength. It's Daniel taming the lion. Boom. Yeah. Right. Awesome. Cool. Inner strength. You have the ability to you have the strength to forgive other people. It's really actually a very cool card. This is mine. It's Gawain. Gawain is inner strength. Right. And because I know that once again, I know the story. He is the strongest knight. He gets stronger as the day goes on. He gets weaker when the sun goes down. Right. As long as that light is in him, he has that power to forgive. Once it goes down, he loses it. Like, that story. And now that's that symbol. Right.
Right. And I think that's, that also speaks to who you are a little bit too. And just as a little bit of an aside, if you click on the link below that is popping up is actually the Arthurian Tarot. If you click on our Amazon Prime link, it'll take you right to it. And you can actually see that and see if it's something for yourself. And, and again, if somebody comes to me and says, hey, how should I learn tarot? You can follow the other link that actually brings you to the Rider deck. By the way, you don't need the one with the big symbolism. They're usually about, 3/4 the size of this. I use the big ones because when I use it in online readings or whatever, it's good to get a really big visual going so that everybody can see the detail. So if somebody comes to me and says, hey, I just want to learn tarot, I'm going to direct them there. But I know very few people that stick with this long term forever. They incorporate other ones. I mean, I'm working with another deck right now called the Great Unknown, or the Unknown Connection, and it's one of these they're beautifully drawn cards, and that's another thing I noticed about the Arthean is that it's got some really kind of clear, cool things. Yeah. But for someone like you, and think about how you're built here, Mike, like you even said, I'm a history buff. I love the medieval stuff. I love all of those things. So you're encouraged by a deck like that to learn the whole back history.
Absolutely. And once again, you're standing at Barnes & Noble and you look at the 15 decks they got there and you're like, I'll choose that one because that one looks cool. And then if you spend time with it, it becomes your jam. Right. I had people, a couple years later, oh, you read tarot? Well, I have this deck and I used it once and it scared me. So here, it's yours now. Okay, cool. I have 5 decks that people have given me, wrapped in the purple silk and the whole 9 yards. And they're just sitting in my study downstairs. I don't crack them every once in a while, but I don't use them. They're not mine. Yeah. They're not mine. They don't speak to me the way that these do. Right. That being said, find one that works for you. And it could be as simple as these look cool. Right? Or it could be one of those things where a lot of these, the term that I use, it's when I'm talking about my deck, it's a tarot deck with an Arthurian skin on it. Right? So, hey, look, instead of the magician, it's Merlin. Instead of the emperor, it's Arthur. No problem. We got it all figured out, right? Some of the stuff is 1-to-1. A lot of the major arcana are 1-to-1. When you get down into like the minor arcana, the symbology is a little different, right? The symbology is a little different. In fact, like for example, the Five of Swords doesn't have 5 swords on it. It just says every one of them has 1 sword on it, and there's a picture in the background that shows you kind of what's going on. But that's okay, right? Whatever works.
Well, and it's also like what your message driven. I seriously think oracle cards, and especially tarot-based oracle cards, you can get angel decks, or you can get moon decks, or you can get astrology decks that might be limited. They don't have the 44 majors, and they don't, they don't have the 72 pickup. Maybe they're only 40 cards, or maybe they're only whatever. But I've got a great deck from Doreen Virtue that's angels. That's how I learned angels, because I was generally interested in it, but when I started to use it and the messages that came through with it, it's like, oh, here you go. And through practical, I would read somebody pull out here's Uriel and here's your patience with your gift. Holy crap. I did a little more research. I'm like, I should really be talking to Uriel a little more. Like this is something I should be doing. So I think it speaks to the person on their journey. And if it doesn't speak to you, it ends up in Mike's study.
That's pretty much it, right? Seriously though, right?
Right.
It's there's only so many days you end up carrying around with you the stuff that served you. Really good, you get to dump out the stuff that doesn't. You know what I mean? And that doesn't mean don't try stuff. I look at all kinds of new decks all the time. They don't talk to me the same way, right? My psychic dictionary, my language, the way that I learn and present is a little different. The other thing too that I find is sometimes like I'll be reading for somebody and I go, oh, cool, this card has this story behind it. And there's something in the story, not the symbol and what it means, there's something in the story that resonates with that. Right. And so, 100%. In that instance, I'm like, well, that's why I got compelled to tell you that. Right. Because it rings.
And 100% on the, hey, this has got to speak your language. And those stories are going to stick with you, and you're going to tell those stories. You're going to, you might abbreviate it. You might talk longer. You might whatever. But there's a reason why you're telling that story. Yeah. There's a reason why you're saying to them, so listen, I'm going to tell you about this green guy. It's like, and then you tell the whole story, and then they tell you, they're like, you know what? I always bite off more than I can chew. I always let my ego and pride get in the way. And then all of a sudden you're sitting there going, my work is done here.
Right. You said it, not me. There we go. Right.
Perfect. TC, what else?
So then if the Rider-Waite is not your jam, so there are other options out there like that. I know Brandon keeps saying oracle cards, but like for a novice at that, oracle cards are just like the same sort of symbolism then. But just like if you're more comfortable with angels, it's with angels, or you're more comfortable with spirit animals, it's those.
Right.
And for a person who has those, it would be really beneficial to like read up on what they have with them.
Yeah.
To make that connection.
Yes. And the other thing too that is pretty cool about all of it. I'm sorry. I was going to say the cool thing about all of it, when you take a look at the different options available, the only piece of advice that I would give, this is just because the symbol has to speak, right? The symbol has to speak. And so there are some decks that I have seen where you flip it over, it has a picture, and then it has the name, and then it tells you what it's supposed to mean right there on the card. And people just read it. And that's cool. And that helps in the beginning. But the layers of meaning are not going to come through when the words are there for you, right? So one of the examples that I give in my class, and this is actually pretty interesting, is the Hangman card. So the Hangman card, the way that most people would interpret that card is new perspectives. It's a guy hanging upside down. There you go. And it's new perspectives. He's hanging there. He's right. The way that I interpret the card, because of the background story behind, Odin hang on the tree Yggdrasil for 3 days.
Just waiting for that.
Yeah, in order to gain knowledge. So he suffered, right? As part of Norse mythology. He suffers for a couple of days. In exchange, he learns about Ragnarok. He goes, cool. Now I know what's going to happen. Now the problem is I don't know what to do about it. But he gains wisdom through suffering. And so when I look at that card, that's how I interpret that card. Wisdom gained through suffering and your experiences. Right? Other people will go, new perspectives, look at something different. I'm like, that's cool, but I don't interpret it that way. I interpret it this way. Am I right? Are they right? Who cares? Well, I'm saying the message. Your reaction tells me whether or not I'm on. Right.
Well, here's the thing with it. First of all, I think we're all crazy people until we get validation. Like, that's just this work.
Yeah,
but
buddy.
I think if somebody comes to you for a reading and they pull the hangman, they need to hear that story. Yes. That is actually the metric here. The metric is that if I'm working with these, and again, I actually work with these, with the basic tarot for the reason of understanding. Because a lot of times I might be working with somebody, or I might be connecting with somebody who's never done this before.
Right.
So I always keep these in my back pocket. But, I'm the first place I'm going to go here, Mike, you're spot on. I always say, well, I'm going to talk to you about your perspective. I'm going to talk to you about how it is that you're gaining your knowledge, how it is that you're understanding things. You're going to see things a different way. Things are going to be shown to you. It sounds exactly like the Odin story.
Yeah. Yeah. And so when you take a look at that layer, so if it was written on the bottom of the card, I wouldn't have that slightly different interpretation than you did, right? We would just say, it means this, and that's it. So that's why I think that those words are good in the beginning, but you're not developing that psychic dictionary, and you're not letting your intuition work. If you're just reading, it's not even a crutch; it's doing the work for you, right? In my opinion. Now that, once again, it's because of how I interpret the cards. I'm reading the symbol. I'm saying what comes. Because if I'm just reading it, I'm not giving myself room. If I'm reading words off the card, I'm not giving myself room for that intuitive hit. Right, that jump, that leap that happens where people are like, whoa, right? Because I can say this card means this card means that, this card means that. But when I look at those two together and I say, you know what? I'm getting a feeling here. I'm just going to ask, is it your coworker who's paying the rump? Because I don't think it's your boss. Is it your coworker who's causing you problems? And they go, yeah, it's Bob. Bob's a problem. It's like, okay, cool. But if the bottom of the card doesn't say Bob, the coworker's a problem, right? Then I'm not going to be able to let my intuition do that work if the words are written on the card. That's the only caveat that I would give when it comes to giving people advice.
Well, and I think, TC, I mean, share with your experience with this. Now, you haven't really worked a lot with tarot, right, TC?
No, I have not.
So when you hear Mike talk about this, how is this any different than any of the other intuitive modalities you've worked with?
That's a tough question. I thought we were supposed to be asking Mike the questions today.
It's all you, buddy.
I think it kind of, maybe it will segue into the question I've had for him here. Like with astrology, I think there's a lot of information that comes with tarot. And I mean, you can do it one of two ways. You can be that overachieving brainiac, and you can learn like your specific deck and know every symbol and every part of numerology and all the colors and learn all of it and take your notes and have that all with you. And that might be good for some people, but I think for other people, like when they get into astrology and they learn that there's the symbol of the planet, and then there's the actual zodiac sign itself, but then there's, conjunctions, and then there's Chiron over here and Lilith over there, and then these people are in square, but there's a trine, but where's your nodes? I think there's people that get this like overload and just shut down from the information that might actually be really good and intuitive at it, but they're letting like the amount of information block them and not let them move forward. And that was like kind of a question that I had for Mike, was like, looking at tarot, this is like a lot of information. Let's be honest, it's a lot of information. Sometimes that might be a good thing for some people. They might achieve at that, but for sometimes it may not be. Like, I'm a mom, I have a kid, I've got like, Taekwondo practice to get to, and like we got to run over to basketball after, and there's at what point am I going to be able to sit down and actually start learning this? So where then do you find the balance of where that knowledge, learning that's just the straight out knowledge of understanding those symbols and those meanings, where does that fit in with the intuition? Like the use of the intuition or the discernment with the intuition?
Glad you asked that. So during the last class, I was blessed to have a decent number of students in the last class, and as part of the very last class of the 5-week session, we read for other people, right? So the people in the class read for other people. So seeing everybody express themselves differently, right? Same deck of cards, but they're expressing themselves differently. They were not reading off the notes, right? I had one that had done boatloads of work ahead of time, was like, I know what that card means, I know what that card means. I got the meanings down, I got it memorized, I got it hammered out. Another one was like, she did no prep, and she sat down and said, this card looks like a really wonderful house. And I think you have a really wonderful home life. And I think that, right? And both of them gave amazingly good readings. She didn't need to know the meanings of all this stuff. It's just how it was a reflection of how the brain worked, right? It's not a problem. If you are the kind of person that needs to learn all 70 something symbols in the deck, right, then you got to take time to do it. But that's okay. The other thing is, if you are going to go the other route, trust yourself. It's all good. You can't do this wrong. The only way you do it wrong is if you let your ego get in the way, right? If you let your ego get in the way, then you're doing it wrong. If you're doing it in a way to serve someone else, you can't blow it. If you're reading symbols, right? If you're memorizing the cards, if you're just waiting for that stroke of lightning in the back of your noggin, whatever works. Even if my grandma shows up and you go, oh, good, Grandma Rossi, right? Fine. It all works. Putting pressure on yourself to go, I need to know all the symbols and all the stories and all of this and all of that, and then all the other relationships, it's too much. If you're going to take a class, okay, so coming up is a Zodiac Tarot class, right? I look at that class as being really cool and useful, not because now you have another set of stuff to memorize when it comes to the cards. Who wants to do that? It's just too much. But it gives you another dictionary of symbology to tie to. So you go, yeah, so I know that the star, right, means you're looking for new beginnings, you're looking for, right, opportunities, right? Okay. But at the same time, there's a water sign, there's this, there's that, there's all kinds of other stuff in there that can speak to you in a different way.
Yeah, but it's Aquarian, it's life path 8. You know, there's so much to it. But I think you're right, Mike, because it gives you a whole new angle to look at. Right. Like for people taking tarot, it's going to give them the astrology piece that maybe they didn't have. But for the astrology class, it's bringing in tarot, which is a new avenue to be able to like look at these pieces and see how. I mean, I find it fascinating. I loved an astrology class when we brought in like how the tarot were connected to each of the zodiac signs.
And yeah, you are muted.
I muted myself because I was like, you guys are on a roll. I'm just going to shut myself down. I love this as a segue because, you know, not only to talk about, you know, when Mike talks about the tarot, you get all of the stuff that you need to kind of work within that intuition. And while Mike was doing that, I was teaching an astrology class. And then as I'm looking at the astrology class and I'm looking at the tarot class, I'm like, gosh, there's so many things that really kind of combine. And, you know, the astrology of tarot is actually a topic. There's actually, you know, the tarot card actually was based on a lot of astrological connections. And you know, this is how I describe it. When I was in corporate recruiting and sales and all that stuff, everybody, you know, the way that they taught us was there was an art and a science to something. You know, the art was how you said it. The art was how you interpreted things. The art of you know, having kind of a smoothness to it. The science of the sale was how many times you called, what time of the day you called, you know, the tangible things. By the way, in case you were wondering, I just explained the consistency between tarot and astrology. One of them is art. When you read this and you say, you know, oh, here's a dude with 7 pentacles. Looks like he's growing this. Boy, this is about growing your work and growing your passion and, you know, so forth and so on. And then the science part of it is to say, you know, this card is actually connected to Scorpion energy and you're going with the flow and you're being organic and you're, you know, you don't need to let the world know. This isn't about being ostentatious. This is about understanding this. So we've got, you know, you've got multiple symbols that go along with it, but there's an art and a science to it. And in astrology, I was just having a conversation with another student that reached out to me and said, I just found this sky app. I'm seeing the constellations. And I said, oh, pay attention. Saturn and Jupiter are kind of, doing the conjunction. Uranus is starting to go direct. You got the Aries moon going on. And by the way, those of you that are buffs are going to figure out when we were, when we recorded this. But, the conversation, the enlightenment part to her was she goes, I had no idea. Like, this is why things are wonky. The delivery right now, here in late August 2020, the stars are aligned to just burn the house down, like burn the structure down, like let systems fail, let the organization go, and that becomes a real effect. But you can go back and say it's because these are the positions in the sky. This is a science. You can't change that. Like, it's actual, it's the things where people are like, well, show me proof. I just showed you proof. And then if you go back in history, I look back on a Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde was something that was really, it's something that when you first get working with intuitiveness, um, you know, working with people and, really kind of opening this, one of the first things that you hear about is Mercury retrograde. And Mercury retrograde talks about communication and, having the communications breakdown, your emails, things being said that aren't really necessarily interpreted. Basically, everything I've said over the last 3 minutes. We still got a few more weeks before Mercury retrograde, but I also look back in history and things like, Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated during Mercury retrograde. Vesuvius, Mercury retrograde. The Bismarck, Mercury retrograde. The Battle of New Orleans, retrogrades. Like, there was all of these things. Mount Helena, the one in Washington in 1980, Mercury retrograde. There were so many things that happened during Mercury retrograde. Now, granted, it happens three times a year on average, and it's and it's spaced out enough that there's a chance. There's a decent chance. There's about a 16% chance, 18% chance that something will happen during retrogrades. But when you look back at that consistency, it's like, really, really, wow. I could make the argument that Mercury retrograde was going to have an effect on you in some way. If it could make this type of effect, and I know there's other cause and effects, plate tectonics, and but what the Prussians were doing and all that other stuff. You can make a ton of other things with that. But the thing to recognize is that the science part of astrology, actually shows you that things are primed for that. When you pull a card, you're saying, here is the intuitive connection, and you have to figure out the art of how to do it. I mean, you could get you can get the world card, and I could say, guess what? You're going to travel. I mean, Mike, what's your interpretation of a world card when you see it?
When I see the world, what that normally means to me is fulfillment and closure of something. So you have gone on this long journey. The major arcana is actually broken up into a journey. It starts with the Fool going, why are things like this? And it ends with the World, where he's discovered, right? And everything kind of falls into place. So when I see the World, what that card says to me is fulfillment. You have ended your great work, completion of something really cool and useful and good for society and the world. That's how I interpret that usually. It is completeness, it is wholeness.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As opposed to the travel portion of it, right?
Yeah, and again, it's I'm saying one word with that, but I agree with you. I mean, this is a complete thing. It's a full season. Everything is kind of gone cycle. You put it all together. I mean, there's a lot of things to say about that, but I also think it's really interesting that when how much the personal spin is really important. I mean, I've had some people, there's one particular reader locally who reads angel and tarot cards, and I've heard just as many people say they love her as they're like, it wasn't for me. And I always defend people. Whenever I get like feedback like that, and they're like, oh, and I'm like, listen, she wasn't the right messenger for you. Just like there are some people that walk away from me and they're just like, what the freak was that? Like, was he having a seizure? Like, was that a reading? Right. So but you can be a different thing for a different person, but the magic is when you get that person with you and you're delivering a message to them and everything goes right.
Yeah.
You're the right reader.
When they're flowing with it and you're flowing with it too. Yeah. Because the vibration happens. Next thing you know, you're both raising up. It's hot. Right?
Yeah, you're doing an hour session and like an hour and 45 minutes into it, you're like, I really got to go. TC needs to have me on a podcast.
I've never had that. So
I'm sorry. Before Thomas came in, he wanted me to clean his ears, and I'm like, that's why, like, in the middle of Brandon talking, I'm like, no, not now.
Is
and then I realized I wasn't muted.
Is that in his chart?
Oh, it's in his sign. It's in his chart.
I thought you were talking to him. Not now. Too much.
I did.
Too much right now. Too much with this thing.
See, everybody thinks I am, and I'm like,
clean out your ears. Why don't you?
My kid literally comes at me. He's got the Q-tips, and he's in a shirt and underwear, and I'm like, you can't be on the TV right now. Here,
hanging out like Winnie the Pooh. That's awesome.
He wants to come in the screen.
Right.
and by the way, we'll also submit this, for whatever, adult therapy he's going to need later on in life. And it's like, yeah, my mom hung out with mediums. It was kind of, I don't know. And I'm just kidding. That's all.
Yeah, he just looks at me and he's like, you can't read my mind. We pulled that game today. It was a lot of fun. I was totally messing with him. I'm like, oh, you're thinking about this and that. And he's like, no. And I'm like, it's really the seat. I knew it was the seat. He was uncomfortable with the seat, got moved. So he was a little more forward. And he finally was like, it's the seat. And I was like, I knew it. And he just was like, yeah, he's just like, you didn't know that. And I was like, yes, I did.
But then since you didn't say it, he was like, there's no way you could have known that.
Right.
Well, Mike,
when we finish each other's sandwiches, right?
that's just rude. Sometimes it's like, you got up. It's mine now.
That was actually a Frozen reference for all the moms out there.
Got it.
Got it.
That's right, Mike. I fist bump you.
This is my life.
I actually have
what's that? 2 more questions.
Yeah.
Go ahead, let it rip.
So, Mike, what kind of spread? I know, did my research on tarot a little. What kind of spread do you? I know you mentioned one earlier, but is there one that you're more comfortable with?
Yeah. So, so whenever you buy a tarot deck, it comes with a book. The book says this is how you do tarot. And sometimes, if you buy a Rider-Waite deck, it's this big. It's got 7 words in the whole book. And you're like, this doesn't help, right? The thing with the Arthurian one, it came with a nice books, and it had 15 spreads in here. But the standard 10-carder is called Pridwin's Anchor, and it's laid out the same way that I said before. It's this is you, this is your current direction, this is an opposition on the left, there's an opportunity on the right, and on the bottom it's the different domains. So this is your home, this is your work or vocation, this is your relationships, your self-awareness on the inside, this is your past as it relates to the thing, and this is your possible future as it relates to the thing. So it's actually split into 2 parts. If you look at this way, it's your past, your present, your current direction, your future. You go this way, it's opposition, opportunity, left and right. And then on the bottom, it's the domains of your life.
Like in the shape of an anchor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I use that. And then the other thing that I use a lot is exploding 3s. So I'll say, okay, we're going to flip over 3 cards, past, present, future, or mind, body, spirit, or your work, your friends, your family. And then if they go, what's up here? And then, okay, cool. Let's do another 3 about your family. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, let's do another 3 about work. Bang, 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 right? And we'll do that until the time is up. Whatever works for them. If they come in with something general, I run the 10. If they go, I'm worried about work, I go, cool, let's just flip 3 cards and see what work has to say, right? Or whatever, right? That's usually the 2 ways that I do it. When I do it for me, I always do, the monthly tune-up, I'll do the 10 card spread. And then the other thing that I do is I journal it. That is the key to victory when you do it for yourself, is to journal it down. So my normal journal entries, anyway, I open this up. On one side, it'll say the date, something I'm nervous about or whatever, my mental state, and then sometimes it's general, right? And then it'll be the 10 positions, the 10 cards that get flipped, the meaning of those cards, and then opposite, it's this is my reaction to every one of these. That's true. That's garbage. I don't get that. Right. And then you go down the list, and at the bottom, I meditate on it, and I just write along the bottom, these are the things that are happening. This is why I'm reacting so strongly to that card. I have no idea what that means. I should probably look into it. It requires more further meditation. And then what that allows me to do is, you go you can go back. And 9 months ago, I was worried about this stuff, and this was my reaction, and here I am now, which gives you perspective, right? Because sometimes you think the end of the world is coming, and guess what? You live, you survive it, you thrive it, and you're out the other side. And it's like, right? You knew that was going to happen. You knew you were going to be okay. Your intuition says, okay. The brain is screaming, going, oh my God, you're on fire. But your gut is going, it's cool, man. You got this, right? You can't trust it. In the moment when you're nervous, you can't trust it.
I like how you said that. I felt that was really thorough with journaling. I feel that some of us journal that thoroughly. So it made me feel good. I like hearing that, when I'm journaling and I put, this meaning and I connect it over here and then I leave it. And then 3 days later, I come back to finish what I was saying, kind of thing. Like everybody's got a different process, but that's like acceptable.
Well, and I think one of the challenges that I've always seen with journaling in specific is that people think that like when they journal, they think they're either Jack Handy and they're just doing deep thoughts and, they're trying to be inspirational.
Right? It's ridiculous.
Right? Or they end up being like, they try and get too tangible, or they try to solve their problem in that journal entry. And sometimes, I like that I think that was a really kind of honest and raw moment from somebody that's like really kind of working the clay with this, which is why you're a good student of this. And that doesn't make me a teacher. That makes me recognize when somebody's on a path, and then it makes you a really good teacher because you're like, this is a tool you can use. Right. And that tool is you don't have to figure it out right there. You've got to document. Sometimes journaling is about the documentation of this. So then you can recognize that when you go back, you do one of these, and you're like, oh, what was I doing on this date? And you're like, oh yeah, there you go. And trust me, and this is what we all do. We end up having 5 or 20 different journals. Sometimes they're spiral notebooks, sometimes they're leather bound stuff. Which, by the way, click on the link below. But it's the type of thing that you can really kind of capture where you're at, because you're like, not only, especially if you're going to get to be intimate with a deck of cards so you can deliver messages. I don't care what the deck is. I don't care what it is. If you go through that journey and do that work, you're going to have a deeper understanding, because your primer, TC, say hello.
Hi, everybody. This is just a small amount that I'm working with right now. My favorite is "You are not normal." I like that. I have another one that says, "You're not normal. Come sit next to me." Or "You can sit with us." That's what it says. Different things, like Psychic Dictionary. I have one for Conscious Living, my soul path. I'm very particular about what I want to write in that. So
I think that's a really valuable thing, to hear this from people that have done this. I mean, I have, I started to delineate things where it's like, it looks like a journal, but it's kind of a notebook of like business ideas. And it's, the business ideas are mostly, I had to get really finite in how I approach things. So as much as it looks like a journal, I'm trying to keep track of like what I'm actually never getting to, so I can ask myself, why the freak am I skipping this all the time?
Yeah.
Do I think it's too much work? Do I think that maybe it's spirit going, you see this? It's not you. Ask TC to help you. Ask Mike to help you. Ask whatever. Right? So it's like, that's how I'm learning with that one. And then things like the Psychic Dictionary. And, for me, it's culminating into a book, which we'll get to in a second, that it's almost as if, I document, I meet a lot of incredible people on their journey. And, for everyone that comes to you and wants to justify bad decisions, I see
there's like another
people,
5 or 6, that are really coming in and trying. Right?
They're all about like, I need bereavement, I need help, I need to figure this out, I need to kind of go there. And their energy, you learn after a while, and I teach this in the mediumship, classes, is that you get to a point where you're like, you just have to deliver what they need. You need to become that mirror and give them what they need. It's up to them to be enlightened. You're not the change agent here. You are enabling them to have that experience. The change agent comes in to when they decide. Then you say things like, you know what helps me? I write down all my 10 cards. If you said to the woman when she comes in and she's like, hey, I'm a bucket of bad ideas, and you're like, guess what? The 6 of clubs is not going to help you.
I would have said there's a hole in the bucket, dear Liza.
Dear Liza, there's a hole in the bucket. Dear Liza. So it becomes something where you're no longer, you have to mirror that, because then you get good. And if you don't have your intuition on at least standby, on at least flowing energy, they bury you.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think intuition is based, in my opinion, on empathy, especially when you express it for someone else, right? So when someone comes in and says, most of the time, people will come in and ask for a reading, and it has to do with, okay, so last time I sat down with people, it was, I am moving. So tell me everything's going to be okay with the move. I am contemplating starting a new job. I'm beginning to go on interviews. What should I, right? And that ends up being like, the cards are saying this and that, but what do you think? Or what do you think? What do you feel? When this card is saying you should feed your soul with this. Is that a thing? Is that a thing that you've been thinking? And they go, yeah, okay, cool. Then now we know. Now you know that I'm helping them put a box on it, right? So when I went through some tragedy, the first couple of days afterwards, I was like, everything is up here in your brain, and I didn't feel comfortable talking to anyone about it. But the first person I spoke to,
Mike, you got to say that last part again.
Sure.
And you said your brain was up here, and everybody.
Right. So I ended up going through some stuff, and what happens is the first couple of days, you're staring, you're lying in bed, you're not sleeping, you're staring at the ceiling, and all these thoughts and feelings are up here, right? And I didn't feel comfortable talking to anybody about it. A couple of days later, I allowed myself to speak to a friend and go, okay, this is happening. And when I spoke to her about it, I then had to put it in an order. I had to take all this stuff and go and make a narrative to let them know this is happening, as opposed to all this is yelling at you, right? And so when people come in, they go, I am nervous about the move. They have all this going on. And then when I say, how does this make you feel? And they go, it makes me feel this, that, the other thing. I'm asking questions, and they're putting a box. They're building the narrative in their brain, right? About how to, and then they feel settled because they're putting meat on them bones. You know what I mean? And they walk out and go, everything's going to be okay. I kind of knew it was going to be okay, but I didn't know because I was worried about all these other things. It really is that for some people. It's not, the intuition is going, you're really nervous about this. You said that, but you're nervous about this thing, right? And if you ask questions and listen to the answer, if you actually care about them when they walk in the door, it's a lot easier to give a good read. You know what I mean?
Mike, I think what you said is profound, because when you're saying everything's up here, you're talking about the upper chakras. And when you're helping people to vocalize it through their throat, you're pushing it down into the root, the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, like getting really quote unquote to the heart of the matter. And like, that's the center of it all, where it feeds into what's the root of what you're worried about? Like, you're moving. Are you concerned about it becoming a home? Are you concerned that it's going to cause, ripples somewhere else? Yeah. And I just like how you explain that. Sorry, it was just a little observation.
And listen, that's why the, chakra alignment exercise of, taking your deep breath and then moving it, from the top down, because as a cerebral creature, we get stuck in our head and we think it's all up here, and it's really not. So much of this is here. Our brains vibrate at a certain frequency. Your heart is 10 times that when it's working the right way. So if you kind of flood it, into the healing and into the karmatic value, into the balance of energy, into all of that, then you actually become really kind of a clear channel. That's when you become a clear cognizant. You see the theme here, Mike?
There you go. There it is.
There it is. But it becomes something really kind of beautiful. And TC, one more question for Mike, and then I want to do something fun for 5 minutes.
Okay. So, Mike, was there ever a time that you had a reading that for you was like deeply profound, or that has set and stuck with you as like a teachable moment?
Where I was giving a reading to somebody, or somebody gave a reading to me?
Or you gave a reading?
Boy. I don't know. So, okay. So I am not going to use, I have 3 examples of, I'm not going to talk about any of them because they have to do with other people. Like reading for other people. So for me, I ended up, this was at the mediumship class. And I had to do you sit down across from somebody and you have 10 minutes to like, just say, hey, I'm getting this, I'm getting this, I'm getting this. And it was the first time where I sat down to do it and I didn't have the cards. And I was like, okay, I'm going to, because I actually got up and Brandon was like, you bring the cards. I go, I ain't doing that. I just let them on his chair. I said, you stay there. And I'm talking to him like the third person. You stay there. I'll be back. Right. And I sit down and I'm like, I see this. I see this. I see this. I'm getting this. I'm getting this. I saw someone's grandmom because that's the end of the joke. Right. But I was like, boom. And she says this. And I'm getting all this validation. Right. And it was funny because up until then, I'd been like, all that stuff is a block. In my opinion, all that other stuff, all the trappings around it that we put, like the crystal ball and the orbs and all this other stuff and the lights, they're impediments to doing it. I talked to my mom about doing stuff like this, and she goes, oh, I watched the Long Island Medium, and she's great. And I said, she reduces it all down to like a magic trick because I could never do that. Meanwhile, she's an intuitive healer. She does Reiki. I'm like, you can do this stuff. Just stop saying you can't do it, and then you'll do it tomorrow. It's right. And then I got up there and I was doing it. And I was like, holy crap, I can do the thing. This is amazing, right? I said, it was awesome. All you need is to do something once and then you do it, right? All you need is to do something once. You go, I do that. I have a friend who was dating for 30 years and she was complaining to me all the time. And blah, 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 blah. Everybody sucks. I go, you only got to hit once. You only got to hit once, right? If you hit once, you find the right guy. Don't worry about it. If I go up there and I bomb 15 times, but I get it to work once and I know that I can do it, right? So that was that holy schmoly, I have the magic in me moment. I don't know if that answers the question, but that's the answer I'm going to give
you. You got the magic power
Man.
of the music in me. Sorry, did I go there?
Awful.
So listen, we are gonna add in a commercial right here, and we're gonna pause for just a minute. We're gonna hear about some really cool stuff, and then we're gonna be right back. And what we're gonna do, here's my tease. I'm gonna ask Mike some questions from funny questions you should ask your friends. Mike does not know any of this is coming. TC is completely like, oh Jesus, here we go. And we're just going to have a lot of fun with it. So we're going to be right back right after this.
You're going to have a lot.
I know, and that's why now we're back. So we are back, and all seriousness aside, conversations between Mike and I, well, really Mike and anybody, tend to go off the rails, or me and anybody tend to go off the rails and just end up being just its own comedic value. And we would be a disservice to the greater public if we didn't incorporate something kind of fun or whatever.
Hit pause now. Hit pause now. If you're watching this, just hit pause now. What? Did I say that?
Just hit pause now.
Yeah, you have the ability to fast forward, friends. Like, okay, anyway.
Well, trust me, they already fast forwarded through the commercial. They don't want to hear it. They're like, yeah, Brandon, got it. You put out a CD. So I'm going to ask you a question. And again, names can be changed. You're going to have 30 seconds to answer. And this is kind of a rapid fire. Let's just kind of have fun with it. Okay. And then TC is going to make a comment afterwards. So this is how it's going to happen. I'm going to ask you the question. You got 30 seconds, and then TC is going to finish it with a sentence.
Okay. Let's see how this goes.
It makes no sense, but it'll be fun. All right. You ready?
No. Please continue.
Okay. What's the funniest thing you have ever seen a kid or a child do?
Wow. Oh my God. Really? Really? It's because there's like 17 ways to answer that. So I'm teaching. Okay. So I wasn't always so beautiful up here. I really had this giant bald spot that you can only see from the back for a real long time. I look in the mirror and there's hair here. After a while, I ended up obviously shaving it off because it was just the bald spot was too big. But I was teaching karate. I was teaching the kids class one day, and I get done teaching. I go, does anybody have any questions? Little kid raises his hand up and goes, why do you have a hole in your hair? And I was like, that is the best question in the world. And I just looked and I go, stress, kid, stress. Don't get old, right? That was the best. Why do you have a hole in your hair?
TC, what's your answer? What's your statement with that?
to answer what Mike said?
Just tell him bald is beautiful and make him feel better.
He made some stuff up.
I'm just making stuff up.
This game is great. This game is great.
So was your next move? So was your next move? Did you just have him hold the board and say, "Here, hold this, no higher"?
No.
Higher.
I laughed,
and you're just like
so hard. I laughed so hard at that. I cackled. Right? I was like, "Wow, that's the best question in the world." Right? Seriously.
I would have been like, because God's burning enlightenment in my head, kid.
Solar powered sex machine. The old side get. There's your answer. Right?
Wait, hold on. That's another question. What's the worst response? What's the most inappropriate response you've ever had to a student? All right, we'll skip that. We know that one. All right, so here we go. Here's another one. What is the worst food thing you've ever eaten where you've just been like, I'm going to go ahead and do this, but then you ate it, or it was a gas station tuna fish, whatever. What was the worst thing you've ever eaten?
So I was lucky enough. I traveled to Japan for 9 days to train over there. And I'll say it again. I went to Japan to train for 9 days with some hardcore bros, and that was awesome. But I had studied Japanese to go there, right? So I go over there, and I realized very quickly the first day I was there, I knew in Japanese phrase for what am I eating. I did not know the Japanese phrase for any of the answers that anyone gave me, right? So I was like, what am I eating? Like, brr. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know, right? And finally she looks at me and goes, it's meat. And I go, okay. And she just walked away. And it was this little cup. I was like, okay. So I fished around. There's like fishy something or other in there. And the first couple of bites were delicious. And then I put something in my mouth that was chewy. And it wouldn't stop being chewy. And I just chewed. But I'm there with other people, and they were like, isn't it great? I'm like, yeah, it's great. Like second day there, and I'm trying to like not be a jerk and go, right? So it took me at least 11 minutes of chewing. A buddy of mine find it before I could finally get it down. It was not good. It was not good.
So what meat was it?
I think the piece I had was a chewy piece of octopus, but it was just a thing of stuff. It was just, stuff in there. Right? And like an egg cream.
It's a calamari.
And an egg cream. So it was just even worse. I was like, just the worst texture. Anyway.
Listen, I'm going to go to one of the favorite scenes in the Indiana Jones and say, oh, monkey brains.
Monkey brains. Of course, monkey brains. Right? It's a delicacy.
Monkey brains. TC, you got anything to say after that one?
Yeah, menudo. It's kind of like a stew. I don't know how to explain it other than it smells delicious. I went to visit someone I was dating in college. I went with them to meet their family around Christmas, and the grandparents were making this, and it smelled delicious. It was very spicy. And they sat down because I knew here's this, because it was this little, girl from New York who doesn't have any cultural experience, and they're like, here, you want to try some? I was like, yeah, sure, be polite. And I know there were pieces of I want to say tripe in it, and some other stuff in there, and I took a couple spoonfuls, and I was like, okay, what is this? As I'm like choking it down, and they told me, and I was like, excuse me, and got up and ran to the bathroom.
Was he Puerto Rican? Was it
Korean? He was Mexican. He was like Mexican American. So
have you had it since?
No.
It's literally called menudo.
It was like menudo. I think it was menudo.
That's what it's called. Yeah.
So are you sitting there going,
it's a stew, and it tastes like Ricky Martin. It smells amazing, but it just was.
That was a long way for a Ricky Martin joke.
I couldn't.
If you want to call that a joke, we can continue.
Yeah. All right.
Notice how some of us ignored that and just kept talking.
Yeah, we just kept going, right? He went back to the well again. He was like, no, this is a hit. Obviously, you didn't hear it. I don't want to try it again.
If you didn't catch the Father's Day podcast, Brandon is still not funny right now.
So I have another question.
Brutal.
Are you ready?
Okay, I'm ready. Here we go.
All right. What is your spirit animal and why?
Oh, see, that's a setup. So so during the intuitive development class, we did a Mary Payton case. She's an amazing. She has so many talents, but she ended up teaching the shamanistic class and the spirit animal class. So I'm there, and during the class, we had to do a meditation. And so you're doing a meditation, and as part of it, you go through the woods, you go here, you go there, and then you go into a cave. And then when you're inside the cave, it's like, okay, so your spirit animal is waiting for you inside the cave. Now remember, I have every time someone's like, there's people waiting for you, I turn around, empty room, right, whatever. So, but I hear something huge behind me in the meditation, snuffling around. It feels big. I meditate where I'm like, it's got to be a bear. Turn around, it's gonna be a bear. Me and a bear hanging out. It's gonna be fantastic. And I hear right big noise. I turn around and it's a fox. This little fox, giant tail. And he looks at me. He goes, "Stop!" Right? And I'm like, "What?" And he looks and turns his head like this, and then whoop, out the door. And I chase him around, follow him around, whatever. So my spirit animal is a fox. I call him Kit because that is the Japanese word kitsune for a fox spirit. My pendulum is called Bit because it says yes and no. Anyway, so Kit is my spirit animal, a little foxy dude. And so essentially what foxes are really good for is they are very intelligent and also find different innovative ways to solve problems through their cunning and through their persistence. So I'll take that. That sounds pretty cool, right?
That is
Anyway.
that is pretty awesome. So, and I'll share something quick. I remember when you described seeing that spirit animal, you're just like, he's like, "Hey, what's up, dude?" And then he's like going over here, and he's like, "Hey, what's up? How you doing?" Like it was like he was saying
running around the cave,
over
and
over again.
He'd go over here, look at me, and be like, "What's up?" And disappear, come out of there. Hey, how's it going? Right? What's up?
It was like
Great.
popping around.
Yeah.
TC, what's your spirit animal?
I know as a student, I'm still working on that because I've done the cave shamanism thing twice, and both times, like, nothing was there, so it's okay. But I know a funny story is when I was in a circle with Mary, I got a lemur one time. And it was funny because she was trying very hard to explain what he was saying, and he was like up here above everyone, and he gave that attitude that he was distinct, and he was always confused with a monkey, but he was distinctive, and he was kind of snotty and more exotic, and she's trying to explain this in a very calm, friendly way, and I'm like, this thing thinks it's the shit. Just say it because that's what it thinks.
Right?
And she's like, this just is like your persona, because you're not cut from the same cloth, you're distinctive. And I'm like, I thought it was a very diplomatic way for her to put that this thing was like, I'm above you. Thanks.
My spirit animal's a spaz. It's just you take what you get. You know what I mean? It's just hyper, run all around, trying to do everything all at once.
Meanwhile, I get this lemur that's like, I'm glad you're a spaz. Thanks for joining us.
Yes.
And anyway, like it was kind of a funny experience. I know turkey vultures tend to be my thing lately. So
yeah. Well, when we have Mary on, which is also another podcast you can look up, we're going to talk about some spirit animal stuff and that sort of thing. I thought it was a great question for you guys into that. Here's another one, and again, two more. Give me the fun side of it. So if you were to be reincarnated, and again, you can go frontwards or backwards, who would you actually want to be? Like, and let's just stick with historical figures. You cross over, you're there, and they're like, listen, we got one more job for you to do, but you get to choose your own adventure. Who are you going to come back as and why?
All right, that's okay. So I'm going to go back into a development class again. So one of the things that we talk about, I actually had read a book at the same time that has to do with the 4 aspects of the male psyche, right? It's called warrior, magician. King, warrior, magician, lover, right? So the idea is that we fall into these mature or immature archetypes as we get older, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I thought that of myself as having all the martial arts background and all the other stuff and military history buff, that I'm obviously the warrior, right? I'm made for confrontation, right? This is my calling. And so we ended up doing the past life class, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember making the comment at that point. I said, I think past lives are dopey because everybody says that they're either famous or they were on the Titanic. So it's all just a bunch of like, you can't all be Lady Di. Like, stop it. You can't all be Annie Oakley. Like I said, if I was somebody, I'd probably just be a farmer, some farmer. And then I came back as a farmer. I came back as another farmer. I was a farmer, but I was a shopkeeper. I was another farmer, right? So it ends up that we end up doing the meditation. And during the meditation, Brandon runs it. You go and you go into an elevator, and there's you take a look at the bank of buttons, and you hit a button, and Elevator opens, you go outside. And so I pop out. In my mind, I'm like, all right, here comes the warrior. Here it is, right? Joking about farmers, but I'm a warrior. So I look down and I am dressed as a
Shogun.
no, you would think so, but no. I looked down and I was dressed like a French soldier from the Napoleonic War. And I was like, huh, well, that's cool. And then I took another 5 steps and I looked down and I didn't have that outfit on anymore. I was like, oh, I had like a leather tunic. I had kilt. I had some boots. I had a bunch of belts. I had stuff hanging off. I had like pens and I had a scrolls and stuff. And I was like, what's all this? I'm like, oh, that's all right. I'll just grab my axe. And I'm like, I don't have any weapons. I'm like, what am I? What is this?
Guess what? You're a farmer.
False. So here's the thing, though. So once again, in the meditation, it's like you're going to go to your house. So I go to my house and it's sitting there and you're going to see your whole family. I walk in, the place is empty because the joke never ends. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Right? But it ends up that other people, during the meditation, I'm walking around and people are calling me by a name and they're like, oh, we're so glad you're back. You've been traveling for the past 9 months. We're glad you're back. Can you please tell us stories about where you've been? Everybody was asking me for stories about where I've been. And I was like, huh, that seems like more like Druid stuff from the same area, Gaul in France, right? And then when it was done, I ended up walking back. I looked down and just before I got in the elevator, I looked at the Roman Centurion and then I shut the door. So I was like, that's cool. I don't have to be this thing because I'm all these things. I just expressed this thing this time, right? I am right. I am the warrior. I am the I am the magician. I am right. That's a magician archetype. Essentially, someone who has secret knowledge. Like an engineer is a magician, according to the book, right?
That's cool.
Because they know specialized knowledge, right? And then the mature aspect of that is you share it with other people. The immature one is you keep it to yourself for your own aggrandizement and go, well, you don't know what I know, right? So that's that teaching, being able to teach and impart that specialized knowledge to other people is like the highest calling. You know what I mean? People who use the warrior archetype and they defend other people, that is the higher calling. You know what I mean? People
makes sense. So you still haven't answered the question. Who do you want to come back as?
Oh yeah. I want to be that guy. I want to find out who that bro is. I want to come back as like either a druid or a wandering somebody, right? And just be like, yeah, I know what's going on down in Rome. I know what's going on down in the Iberian Peninsula. I figured that out. I'm gonna come back and tell you guys, right? Something. I want to be that guy. That guy, he's an interesting bro, right?
So let me get this straight. You want to come back as like a spoiler alert?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
You want to come back and be like, hey, just to let you know, it doesn't look good for Caesar on the 15th.
Right. Spoiler. Okay, so here's my spoiler story. So, you guys know the show Rome? It was on HBO.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay. So it's funny thing. So a buddy of mine is watching. I go, and I at the time I didn't have HBO, and he's talking about, oh yeah, Caesar and Crassus. I go, oh, did Caesar betray Pompey yet? And he goes, what? I go, yeah, it's gonna happen. He goes, how do you know that? I go, because it's history, dude. And he goes, oh, I didn't know that was the story. You ruined it for me. I go, are you kidding me? Right? We had a moment. It was great, right?
You're like freshman history.
What are we talking about?
What's wrong with you?
Right. They're called Caesars because of Caesar. Did you not know that? He's like, no, I know it is. Okay, way to go. Way to go.
And you're the bad guy. That's the worst part.
Also, I'm the jerk, right?
So how do you know you're not the spoiler in this life?
I am, obviously. I ruin things. What are we talking about, right?
Because most kids don't read history. Take it from a history teacher.
Yeah, sad. Oh, are you a history teacher?
Well, was.
Cool. Super cool.
Now she's so busy with this. She don't need no school. She don't need no education.
I'm getting a different kind of education now.
Different kind of education. She's got it well in hand.
Give me that fifth question. Give me that hot number 5.
TC, real quick though, who you want to come back as?
Oh yeah.
Either an Egyptian to find out what really happened. How did those pyramids get built? Or to all my fans out there, I would like to come back as the actress that is opposite Jamie Fraser in Outlander. Just saying.
Wait. Look at my face. Okay.
Yeah, anyone who watches Outlander will understand exactly what I'm saying and why.
You'll know. You'll know for.
There's a reason my face is turning color right now.
Good, and I'm going to let it sit there.
Oh.
All right, Mike, here we go. We're going to go here, and we're going to go head to head a little bit here. So best movie franchise, best series of movies, best, you're on a deserted island, and you can pick the entire series. So if you want all 9 of the Star Wars, if you want the Twilight series,
obviously.
if you want, I mean, Indiana Jones, Die Hard, the list goes on and on. Where do you go? What are you going to grab?
Okay, so my favorite movie from a cinematic experience is The Fellowship of the Ring, the extended version of Fellowship of the Ring. It is one of my favorite books. I think that he did the best job with that movie. He's gorgeous.
And the extended version actually gives you a little bit more to fill in the gaps.
Yes, absolutely.
Like he actually follows the book better with 15 more minutes.
Yeah, it's all you need was another 20 minutes, right? So anyway,
right.
I'm going to cheat. The obvious answer is the Marvel Avengers movies. Because there's like 11, 13, 15 of them, right? But also you get a classic superhero movie, you get a spy movie, right? You get a buddy movie, right? And you go through the list, and it gives you you get a taste of everything, right? You get a taste of everything from front to back.
That's a great answer, and I'm going to pile on to that. Yeah, since you say it that way, that actually makes it. And here's my argument too. It's actually the most spiritual series because, each one of the Marvel characters are actually a chakra. They represent a certain specific energy in the universe. Every single one of the Infinity Stones were chakra based. I mean, all of it, Thanos was, the discernment of how you use your knowledge and your strength. So if you really want to make an argument there it is.
He was purple. No.
What do you mean he's purple?
He's purple. It's like
but you understand that. So he was a creator energy. He got to choose who was going to live or die. Bam.
You want to really play a game here? Did he choose, or when he chose to snap his fingers, did the snap choose for him?
Oh, I don't know. That's crazy talk. That's beyond the beyond.
Wait a minute, this far before we started talking crazy?
Yeah, you're beyond the pale now. What are we talking about? Right?
Who invited her? But it ends up being something where, and even the classic lines that came out of that where he's like, you should have gone for the head. Why did you need to go for the head? It wasn't the heart. The heart can always take the damage. The heart is built to consume damage. You were supposed to go right here. I can make an argument. I love that answer, Mike. I love it. And I'm glad he didn't just kind of cheap out and go, I really like this and childhood and blah blah blah. No, you went cerebral. You went for the whole. And did you mean to make it an energy answer, or were you just like? I love the breakdown of saying we got the warrior side of it, we got the brotherhood side of it, we got the science side of it. I love that answer.
Absolutely. I think it's the most well-rounded franchise because you have those different flavors of movies sprinkled in amongst this overarching story, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So listen, guys, thank you so much. Mike, thanks for being a part of things here. TC, you want to weigh on that on the series answer?
He read my mind, so I was going to go with Marvel because it was 22 movies, and if I'm stuck on an island, why not?
If nothing else, you get to see Robert Downey Jr.
Oh my God, I love our DJ. Don't even, because we'll be here another.
I love Ronnie James Dio too, but you see what I did there? I'm dyslexic.
Our DJ.
I got it. I follow you. But
I'm dyslexic too. He's the only one I can get his initials in order because I just love him.
Fair enough. Well, listen, it's all good, and it's funny. It's just like hair metal in the 90s. The guys bought it, but the women were the ones that showed up to the shows. The women are actually driving the ticket sales in that because they're just
I
can't.
I don't have anything.
Because of all the Chris's. Just leave it at that.
Chris Helmsworth, I get it. I understand what you're saying.
Chris Hemsworth, Chris Pratt, Chris Evans. That moment when Haley Atwell accidentally touches his chest was not supposed to happen in the movie. That was like an oops, but they put it in there because it was such a natural reaction.
Are you sure you don't want to be opposite of him?
Too wholesome.
Who's too wholesome? Robert Downey Jr.?
No,
you're not following along.
Chris Evans, like
you're not following along.
Now I'm getting it. I understand what you're saying. Listen, it's all good. She's going back and forth on this. All right, guys. So listen, thank you so much for tuning in. Mike, thank you so much for being our guest.
Yeah, it's great.
TC, great job as always. Way to keep pace and keep the train moving. Thank you so much, guys. And remember, you can have everyday intuition if you take the time for yourself, center yourself, understand what you're meant to do in this world, and then go do it. Remember to listen to that voice that's inside of you and make sure you just keep going. So, Mike, thank you once again. TC, great job as always. And
bye, everybody.
See you guys soon.
Later, buddies.
Later, buddy.
Hey everybody, it's Brandon Russ. You already know I love to talk, but did you also know that I love to create music and soundscapes? Well, my latest CD, Sanctuary, is going to be out June 12th. This CD was created as part of my journey. It has soothing piano, sound bowls, and guitar. I really enjoyed making this, and it is part of my journey. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the soundscapes that are created. Some of them have very specific flow to them, while others are very kind of just meditative. I hope you enjoy this as much as I enjoyed making it. Sanctuary, a meditative space, is now available at iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, and other great online music centers. Thank you again. See you soon. And wherever your journey takes you, remember to keep going.